Hey guys, Scott Fishman here for Wrestling Inc. Today I have someone who's made quite a splash with his return to NXT the last couple of weeks, Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne, how are you today?
Not bad, how are you?
Good. So the last time I spoke, I believe you had made the move to the States. We hadn't seen you for the last couple of months, so if you could just kind of update the fans on what you've been up to before your comeback.
Yeah, so I moved to the States expecting this to be a full-time thing and focus fully on NXT in the US, and then obviously the world went mad and we ended up back in the UK for what we thought would be a few weeks, and 8 months later I'm finally making my return and I'm ready to go.
Tell me what those, how frustrating and just what kept you kind of sane during those last couple of months when you're seeing, you know, all this potential, what's going on with NXT and just all the momentum that you had built beforehand.
I try and just look at things a bit more positively and put a positive spin on it. Obviously I was in a great position before all this happened and I was teaming with Matt and all of that was going well, but it gave me an opportunity to sort of realign my focus and get in the best shape I possibly could, and get excited for a return, and that's exactly what I've done. I used the time and controlled what I could, and now I'm back, I'm ready to go, and I feel better than ever.
And your child just turned 2. I mean, what was that like to kind of be there, you know, during this kind of important time in the child's life?
Yeah, so she just turned 2 years old, so I've been lucky in that I've got to spend so much time with her, and a time that she's really starting to change. So of course, like I just put the positive spin on whatever I can. Obviously, there's frustrations, but I'm better off than a lot of the world, and I got to be at home and completely safe, my family's safe, and I got to just focus on how good it's going to be when I'm back, and here I am.
And you talked about, you know, focusing on your body and just the transformation that you made. A lot of fans remarked on that when they saw you on the NXT UK show. What did you kind of do differently, or what did you change, or just how did you kind of make this progress?
For me, I've wrestled since I was 12 years old, so I've never had time off. I've never been out injured or anything like that. There's just, as injured as I would get, I would just work through it. Like, touch wood, it's never been anything too serious. But then getting that time off was the first time in my life that I've ever had to focus on just the training aspect. Normally, you focus on traveling, you're on the road, you're busy, you're focused on matches coming up, and the training ends up secondary to that. It's just to supplement that, where it's the first time in my life that the only thing I could control was my training, was my nutrition, was all that kind of stuff. So I just used the time the best I could, and even though the aesthetic part of it and people are commenting on it, and that's great, obviously I love to hear that, but for me it's all about performance. I want to be able to come back and put on the best matches I ever have. I want my performance to go up, and that's been my main focus.
Mm. And you came back during the Halloween Havoc show. How much planning went into your return and making it the right time for you to come back?
It was very sudden, actually. At the same time, when I'd left, my visa had come up for renewal, and obviously with everything shut down in the world, it wasn't a simple process. But when it finally started moving, it all happened very fast. It was in the space of a couple of weeks. But obviously, then hearing that it was going to be Halloween Havoc and stuff like that, I sort of bit the hand off at the chance to be back. I was obviously, it was building up, and I managed to do that little bit in the UK for NXT UK, and I got to help backstage there, and you know that scratched a bit of the itch, but it feels great to be back and to be focused on something as big as WarGames coming up.
And, you know, so much has changed even the last couple of months, not only with the presentation, just with who's featured on the show. How do you kind of compare the atmosphere before you left, you know, with everything happening, to when you made that return back? And just, can you describe the locker room feel, just everything that went in when you saw it and you came into this Capitol Center?
Yeah, just watching, obviously, throughout that time off, seeing how different the roster was, and things were changing and developing, and people were positioning themselves in different parts. Like, it feels like a completely different place in that aspect. But the thing with NXT is it's always been this way. I've been here now for 3 or 4 years, so I've sort of seen a few different iterations of NXT. But the one constant throughout it is it's a competitive locker room in a positive way. Obviously, everyone's trying to go out there and have the best match they possibly can, put on the best performance they can, and that's still exactly the same, whether there's fans in the building or not. Obviously, there's a lot of people watching at home, so the focus is the same to go out and put on the best show we all possibly can. And being in there with people like Undisputed Era, who I have this history with, especially building to something like WarGames, you know it's going to be competitive, and that's what's great about NXT.
What is your thought? What was your thoughts, your reaction when you were told that you were going to be paired with Pat McAfee? I know Danny Burch, Oney Lorcan, a great addition as well. Just you have such a unique faction that's been brewing, and you bring such a great, bring a lot of legitimacy to this group. And Pat McAfee's been great on the microphone and really standing out as this crew. Talk about just aligning with them, the dynamic between you guys, and just the thoughts on moving forward and really making something out of this.
It feels like a winning combination for me. Obviously, I've always sort of let my matches and the performance I put on do a lot of the speaking. That's what I've got known for, is going out there and putting on those kind of matches. But then aligning with someone like Pat, it sort of gives me this completely different angle and this different, it's interesting to me. It's a different approach. Obviously, you can say what you want about him, but he's incredibly charismatic and you get the reaction. So for me, it's something completely different. Not to mention the fact that now I get to have a bit more of an edge. Obviously, it's been building up, like you said. There is that bit of frustration about being away, and now I get to come back with different look, different sort of different mindset, and hopefully it's coming across on screen with more of an edge to myself. And I'm also really happy for Oney and Danny, people I've known for years and years, especially Danny. I've known him for such a long time back in the UK, and now they're finally starting to get the props they deserve, and they're getting positioned going into something as massive as a takeover, specifically WarGames.
How much interaction did you guys have about what you guys wanted to do, what the plan was? How much involvement did you have creatively in the direction and that presentation that you guys wanted to give out? This was, this being an established group already, but then with you in the mix, and then Pat's, not, I guess he's coming from the football world, but, being a big wrestling fan, it seems like he really gets it. I mean, was there any kind of trepidation about maybe like, okay, this is someone I'm not too sure about because he didn't come up the traditional way? I don't know what to expect, and just maybe your early interactions with him.
No, not at all. It's all been very natural. It feels natural on screen, and then even behind the scenes, he's a very charismatic, open person. He's been great to get along with. Like again, for me, it's more about like, I want to come out and put on the best show I can, put on the best matches I can, and it's aligning with people like Pat, who gets such fantastic reactions, and again, say what you want about him, but he obviously really cares about wrestling, else he wouldn't need to be doing it. So having someone that's sort of so excited to be here and be involved, and somebody who's going to go out there and annoy people, or some people are going to love him, it's always great to be surrounded by people like that. They're a perfect fit for wrestling.
Mm-hmm. And you came from the NXT UK brand, which has been a great launching pad here. Is there, there's a lot of buzz that was developed between Walter and Dragunov, which, a lot of people are like, you need to see this, a lot of word of mouth. So that's kind of helped gather interest for this brand. Is there anyone else, like if you could pick one or two, who would you like to see make the transition to the NXT shows we're seeing in the States?
Yeah, so obviously I have history with almost everyone on the roster. Obviously, I'd love to see Trent and Tyler come out here and do more. And then for people that, I'll give you a name that's a bit more probably people wouldn't expect, but I feel like Wild Boar is really untapped potential. He's somebody I wanted here for a long time, and I've been friends with him for years and years. I don't think people have fully saw what he can do yet, and I think it's a matter of time before he starts to break out, and hopefully he gets to come over here and show the whole world what he can do. But there's so many guys over there, obviously. I've got a long history with Mark Andrews. I'd love to see him come out here and maybe even do, I know he's done bits on 205, maybe he could bring something to that show. So there's so much talent over there, and everyone, I think what's great about it too is even against the odds this year of the UK being locked down and then coming back for a minute and now being locked down again, everyone's still improving. The work ethic over there is crazy. Everyone loves wrestling. It's a great roster to be around, and everyone's continually improving even against the odds.
What do you think right now the perception of NXT is as far as the brand itself within WWE? Because we saw at Survivor Series they weren't included A lot of people are arguing why weren't they included because they want to, they're on USA Network. It's a level playing field. Kind of what do you think of NXT as it stands out as a brand amongst the other Raw and SmackDown?
Honestly, I'd rather us be separate sometimes. It was great last year being a part of Survivor Series and getting to do that, but at the same time, I want NXT to stand out on its own. NXT has been great to me, and I love being able to come in here and wrestle the way I want to wrestle, be who I want to be, and NXT is this amazing platform to do that. Raw and SmackDown, main roster, whatever you want to call it, that's its own thing too. And whether it's progression or whether it's just moving from brand to brand, if I ever do move over to a SmackDown or a Raw, I want that to feel exciting and interesting. And I feel like if we're sort of overexposed on there now, that wouldn't necessarily do anything for the brand or myself either. So even though it's good in pockets, being a part of the Royal Rumble is amazing, bucket list stuff, and being a part of Survivor Series is the same. But I'm also in no rush. I don't feel like anyone should panic when NXT maybe not involved, especially with the way the world is right now. Things are more complex than it once was, but definitely being a separate entity is not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, and lastly, you touched on it throughout the interview. We have WarGames coming up, the women's WarGames, and you guys seem to be building towards that as well. You were a part of the WarGames in the past. You draw, on social media, you kind of reflected on being a part of it. What did you learn from that experience that you're going to take into this one, and just the overall evolvement of the cage itself from past years that we've seen in WCW and the NWA, and just how WWE kind of has evolved into their own kind of XT way of doing it, presentation-wise?
Yeah, WarGames for me personally is special because, like you say, 2 years ago was sort of it was a huge turning point in my life because in that same period I'd broken my foot. I was still managed to be involved in the match, and that date was my daughter's due date. We risked it and we went for it anyway, and I'm on top of the cage at the end of the show. I come down and find out that she's in labour. Managed to get back just in time for the birth of my daughter. So for me personally, the biggest turning point in my life will always be attached to that WarGames memory. So it means a lot to me. And then as far as NXT as a whole goes, obviously every year there's sort of stakes, and the especially now that when the W2 WarGames matches, now that started happening, it's, you still got to go out there and you've got to impress and you've got to put on a show, and that gets more difficult. We had Ricochet doing a double moonsault off the top of the cage. So every year it gets a little bit harder. You've got to be more creative. You've got to be more fired up for it, and it's a challenge that we all embrace, and I can't wait to get out there.